Australia's cost of living crisis is felt acutely across our community, including by those already stressed by poverty. Tomorrow, the Australian Council of Social Services is releasing its latest report on what poverty looks like in Australia. Cass Goldie is the CEO of ACOSS and she joins me now. Cass Goldie, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you.
So we're now years into a cost of living crisis. What effect has that second layer had on the people that you track in your report?
Well, this report we're releasing tomorrow with the University of New South Wales paints a very grim picture in terms of the level of deprivation for large numbers of people on very low incomes across the country. Everybody, of course, is talking about the cost of living crisis, but let's be clear, different people are experiencing this cost of living crisis in different ways. If you're on a high income, if you've got wealth behind you, actually you're doing very, very well in the current climate. And then you've got people who, yes, you've got to cut back on overseas holidays or you're having to not go out so much socially. What this report shines a light on is people who are going without the very basic essentials of life. Things like food, housing, medical attention when you need it, being able to get your teeth fixed. These kinds of really basic community standards about what you would consider to be essential to live with basic dignity and be able to be out in the community in a way with some level of respect.
And is it possible to measure how many people are experiencing poverty in this way, in the way you're talking about, where basic things and also things that are very important for building health over a long term, how many people are coming into this situation for the first time during this crisis?
Well, look, this shows that, for example, if you're unemployed, if you're a job seeker, you're experiencing multiple deprivations at 5 times the rate of the general population. If you're, for example, on the parenting payment, 4 times as likely to be experiencing deprivation. If you're a First Nations person, if you're a single parent, 3 times as likely. And if you're in the private rental market, twice the rate of multiple deprivation to the general population. So this is a very stark picture of people who are going without the essentials. You don't have even $500 behind you in case you need it in a crisis. And I think, to your point, Sarah, this is, of course, about the basics, things you can afford or you can't afford, but then what that does to your sense of well-being and health. What's the impact? Well, the latest we've got, for example, very serious on suicides in Australia shows that 1/3 of those are people relying on these income support payments like job seeker and the disability support pension. It's very serious.
I remember you at the time of the budget, you were urging the government to think about a significant raise in job seeker. There's a figure that jumped out at me from the report. You say, or you find that people on job seeker are much more likely, 4 times more likely than the general population, to lack a substantial meal. So we've heard about food banks in the year, but young people regularly skipping meals, is that the sort of thing you were warning about at the time of the budget?
So actually, Sarah, for people on job seeker, they're 14 times more likely to be going regularly without a substantial meal a day. So food has become a discretionary item. I mean, our colleagues at Food Bank released their hunger report a couple of weeks ago, and we were so alarmed to see the increase in the rates. 3 million people experiencing food insecurity in, let's be clear, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, because that is who Australia is, and we're allowing this level of deprivation to happen on our watch. We do actually know what needs to be done to address it. You're quite right that we will persist in saying that job seeker, these income support payments, youth allowance, young people, that's just $46 a day, Sarah, youth allowance. You can't study when you're going hungry, and our universities all over the country are talking about seeing students who are regularly not eating because they don't have the money to do it.
So describe some of the other things that people are missing out on, and I think people will be able to imagine the impacts that has on their lives, but what sorts of things are people foregoing or not keeping going within their lives?
Yeah, so these essentials are sort of community expectations of the basics you need. We talked about food, housing, being able to have a little bit of money behind you if you're in a crisis, but also a mobile phone or connection to the internet. Now, that is a real essential. And, you know, we've got people on JobSeeker at 3 times the rate not having access to those kinds of essentials.
Which
so the level of stress,
kills your chances.
The level of stress
looking
associated with this is very, very serious.
Now, we've obviously heard the government in the course of in the course of the last couple of years talking about cost of living measures. Are you able to see or measure in any way whether those cost of living measures are helping these people?
Well, look, on the adequacy of our income support payments, they have been cut away at for decades, Sarah. This is a chronic problem, and that's why so many people have been calling for the substantial increase to JobSeeker and Youth Allowance, including the government's own independent advisory committee. But we've only seen actually an increase in JobSeeker of about $2.80 per day, real increase, since the government came in. And Commonwealth rent assistance has just gone up by $3 per day. This is not on the scale that's needed. And I think we all know it, but who is going to be the one to make the decision? We'd have liked to have seen that fixed this week in Parliament rather than some of the other measures that are being dealt with.
Now, obviously this week, one of the focuses of legislation this week has been the government getting through so far 1 and possibly 2 of its housing measures. Do you expect that will have a material impact on these people?
Well, every additional house on the ground that's affordable will be welcome, no question about that. If all of the government's measures are now in place, we should see an increase of about 55,000 in terms of social and affordable housing. We are, however, so far behind in this area. We estimate about 50,000 more houses every single year. So we need a big plan there and much more boost in the social housing area. So we welcome the breakthrough there, but we are all calling for more investment in the social housing area because that's where finally people on very low fixed incomes will actually be able to have some security. We're very worried about the rates of evictions all over the country with rents going up, people in the private rental market who, you know, if you're on JobSeeker, for example, there is literally nowhere that's affordable for you to live in the private rental market.
Cass Goldie, thank you for, they're hard figures to hear, but it's important that we hear this at the same time that all the political arguments are taking place. I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.